Rubio proved that orange jumpsuit, handcuff-wearing minister is lying when he said that more Canadians pay into this.
This guy's garage. Like and subscribe.
Questions orales. Oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
After 9 years of NDP Liberals, taxes up, costs up, crimes up, time's up. And now he wants a 300% carbon tax hike, all the way up to 61 cents a litre. Why not let Canadians choose a common-sense Conservative government that will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime now?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
If the opposition had spent any time listening to Canadians over the summer, he would have heard that they need solutions. They need answers to the challenges they're facing. That's not what he's offering. Indeed, he doesn't care about Canadians. He just cares about himself and his own political interests. We're going to keep focused on doing the things that he refuses to do, whether it's him voting against dental care, whether it's him voting against child care, whether it's him voting against a national school food program. We're going to still deliver the things that matter to Canadians, like food in kids' bellies, childcare spaces, and supports for seniors to go to the dentist, many of them first time in years.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Children are hungrier than ever after 9 years of the NDP Liberals. In fact, 25% of them are not getting enough food, and we now know why. A carbon tax fraud has been perpetrated by this NDP Liberal Prime Minister, who kept secret Environment Canada documents that showed that the carbon tax was blowing a $25 billion hole in our economy. Our economy per capita is smaller today than it was 10 years ago, during which time the American economy has grown by 19%. Instead of a reckless plan to hike the tax to 61 cents a litre, why not allow Canadians to vote to axe the tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Here's a news flash for the Conservative leader. Climate change costs money. And what would cost the most money to Canadians at all is his do-nothing climate plan. News flash. When the Toronto subway gets flooded, it costs money. News flash. When forest fires hit communities across this country, it costs Canadians money to rebuild. When you have droughts that hit farmers and agriculturists across this country, it costs money. What doesn't cost money is putting money in 8 out of 10 of Canadians' pockets with the Canada Carbon Rebate to support their families and fight climate change.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister just proved my point. His tax doesn't stop floods, fires, or droughts. All it does is create more poverty. This also from a high-flying, high-taxing, high-carbon hypocrite who flew 92,000 kilometers in a fuel-guzzling, tax-funded private jet while he taxes single moms and seniors for heating their homes. Now, carbon tax Carney wants him to put the tax back on home heating oil. Will he reject carbon tax Carney and instead allow Canadians to choose to axe the tax?
Want to remind all members, and to do so early, to be very mindful of their language that they use in referring to other members in this House. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative leader doesn't believe in climate change, and that's why he has a do-nothing plan to fight climate change. It would cost Canadians money and challenge the future we're building for our kids. Our plan with the Canada Carbon Rebate puts more dollars in 8 out of 10 Canadians' pockets right across the country, supports the middle class and people working hard to join it, while delivering the kinds of investments that are going to grow our economy and reduce emissions at the same time. This is a responsible climate plan that fights climate change and supports Canadians. He wants to do nothing. He wants to hurt Canadians.
The Honourable Member from Thornhill.
Prime Minister gave the Finance Minister a real vote of confidence last week as he outsourced the job that she was supposed to have been doing for 4 years and gave it to a man who's not even in the Liberal caucus. First, the Prime Minister tried to fire her in the newspaper, and now she's being shoved aside for carbon tax Carney, a man focused on his own profits and his own corporate interests, who was brought in to serve as the de facto Finance Minister. She's lost her job responsibilities. She's lost her credibility. How long will the phantom Finance Minister endure this humiliation?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I am not going anywhere. Why the Conservatives prefer to focus on personal mudslinging and attacks rather than to actually talk about the economy. They don't want to talk about inflation because it's been down in the target range for 7 months in a row. They don't want to talk about interest rates down 3 times in a row. All they can do is insult people.
The Honourable Member from Thornhill.
Who's going to tell her? She just got a demotion, and he hired a guy that's not even elected to do her job. Does anyone believe that carbon tax Carney is going to tell the Prime Minister how to help a family afford groceries as the loudest cheerleader for carbon taxes ever? If the Finance Minister isn't completely humiliated by now, can she explain why Canadians should trust a man who is the #1 supporter of higher taxes to do her job?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we are seeing more clearly than ever that the only thing the Conservatives know how to do is to level personal attacks and personal denigration. They do not care about Canadians, and now they're scared about the facts of our economy. So let me tell you some facts. Inflation in the target range for 7 months in a row. Interest rates down 3 times in a row, and the IMF says we'll have the strongest economic growth in the G7.
The Honourable Member from Calgary, Nose Hill.
This summer, after he argued that Atlantic Canadian home heating oil should be carbon tax loving Mark Carney spent a lovely summer of whimsy having champers at the Royal Box at Wimbledon and rubbing shoulders at a swish cocktail party with a wealthy CEO who yesterday coincidentally got millions of dollars of tax dollars. This is not someone who's in touch with the struggle of average Canadians, but neither is the Prime Minister. Did he push aside his now phantom female cabinet minister because carbon tax loving Mark Carney could get him into fancier parties than she can?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Look, I first want to begin by saying it's great to be back in this place. I really did miss most people on this side. I can't say that I missed all of you that much, but I did miss you a little bit. But what I do want to say is that it's just typical from the Conservatives that when they have an eminent Canadian, someone who has given so much to this country, who doesn't agree with their economic vision or their vision at all in Canada, they attack them. Mr. Speaker, we need to be better than this. We need to support Canadians and be grateful when they put forward for public service. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member from Calgary, Nose Hill.
They're not even letting her answer the question anymore. At a time when so many people are struggling to make ends meet and pleading for someone to fix the budget, I'm struggling to find a reason why the Prime Minister would put an out-of-touch elitist, active archpriest of carbon price profiteering who has massive conflicts of interest in charge of the federal budget while shunting aside his female cabinet minister. What a feminist. Why does the now phantom finance minister have to get approval for Canada's fall economic statement from carbon tax, conflict of interest, Mark Carney?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'm actually really glad to welcome back to the QP roster the member for Calgary Nose Hill. We haven't heard her raising her voice for a continue cartoonish personal attacks. And that is because they are afraid to reveal to Canadians their plan for austerity and cuts, because they know that's not what Canadians want.
The honourable member from Peterborough, Kawartha.
Mr. Speaker, we have two sources saying the view of some senior officials within the PMO, including Chief of Staff Katie Telford, that the Phantom Finance Minister has been ineffective in selling the government's economic policies. So, it's curious because we have a fake feminist Prime Minister who says he's all for women. Taxes are up, costs are up, the economy's in the toilet, and this carbon tax, Mark Carney, is now going to quadruple the carbon tax on all home heating across Canada. Yeah. So why is this Phantom Finance Minister okay with being publicly humiliated by this fake feminist Prime Minister?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the only people being humiliated today are Conservative MPs who have to listen to their colleagues wallow in the mud of personal character assassination. But what we are focused on is representing and working for Canadians. That's why, Mr. Speaker, the real news today is 30-year mortgage amortizations for all first-time home buyers. That's the real news, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Peterborough, Kawartha.
Mr. Speaker, it is not Conservatives saying that. It's the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Katie Telford, for the record. And so I guess the question is before this Phantom Finance Minister. She simply has two choices. Is she going to join the graveyard of liberal female ministers under this fake feminist Prime Minister? Or, like Jody Wilson-Raybould, Jane Philpott? Or will she continue to be publicly humiliated?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, what we are seeing today is the Conservatives running away from the reality about the Canadian economy. They are running away from the fact that inflation is in the Bank of Canada's target range for 7 months in a row. They are running away from interest rates down 3 times in a row, the first time in the G7, and wages outpacing inflation for 18 months. The only thing the Conservatives know how to do is traffic in cheap insults. Canadians are a lot better than that.
After 9 years of this Liberal NDP government, taxes up, costs up, crimes up, time's up. When the Prime Minister promised to quadruple the carbon tax scam, the leader of the NDP said, yes, sir, anything for his $2.2 million pension. And now, the Canadian Truckers Alliance released a damning report. The carbon tax scam adds more than $4 billion cost to farmers, families, and food. Why don't they just call a carbon tax election now and let Canadians decide whether to quadruple or axe the tax for good?
The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Newsflash, Mr. Speaker. We had a carbon tax election in 2021, and the Conservative Party had a platform where they said they would put in place carbon pricing in this country. Maybe he just has to go and look back at their own platform, Mr. Speaker. Again this morning, the Parliamentary Budget Officer was in committee saying that 8 out of 10 Canadian families where carbon pricing applies get more money than what they pay in pricing, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, the Conservative Party of Canada continues to spew lies and disinformation on this issue.
The honourable member from Calgary, Forest Lawn.
The PBO proved that orange jumpsuit, handcuff-wearing minister is lying when he said that more Canadians pay into this.
I know it's the first day back for members. We've all spent this time with our ridings. I'm going to ask the honourable member if he could rephrase this question because he knows that you can't. I'm going to ask him to. I am going to ask the honourable member to rephrase his question, to not use language which is normally considered unparliamentary. The honourable member from Calgary Forest Lawn from the top.
What this orange jumpsuit wearing, handcuff loving minister doesn't understand is that the PBO proved Canadians pay more into this scam than what they get back. And it's done nothing to stop a single forest fire or flood. It's a scam and nothing else. And the leader of the NDP continues to prop this carbon tax scam up so he can get his $2.2 million pension. That's why he voted in favor of it 24 times. Call a carbon tax election now so Canadians can axe the tax and kick this carbon tax costly coalition to the curb.
It's really important for all members to choose their language and use their words judiciously in a way that is respectful to the House. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, that kind of language from the member opposite is totally inappropriate. And quite frankly, Canadians deserve better. But it's what we've come to expect from the Conservative leader and his caucus, who would prefer.
Outside the House, right?
Colleagues, I could not hear the Honourable Minister give her response. It's difficult for me to hear that, so that I can make sure that the language is correct. The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House, please, from the top.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the language from the member opposite was completely inappropriate, and quite frankly, Canadians deserve better. But unfortunately, that's what we've come to expect from the Conservative members and their leader. And the reason why they're focusing on the price on pollution is because they want to distract Canadians from the real agenda, where they cut pensions for seniors, they cut childcare for families, they cut and defund the CBC at a time of increased disinformation. Mr. Speaker, they want to hide their real agenda from Canadians because they know that they won't like it. But Mr. Speaker, they need to be under that scrutiny and they need to be honest with Canadians.